Good day, everybody. Steve Hess here from OpenBOM. I'm the VP of Product at OpenBOM. And today I'd like to chat about OpenBOM Drive, what we call Drive. And the reason for this is that uh, we're getting a lot of customers coming from traditional data managers, from GrabCAD, from file systems. Everyone comes kind of with their own understanding of what Drive might be, or maybe with their impression of what they're coming from. And I wanted to take a moment and just kind of lay out the foundational elements of Drive, what's different, what's new, and how kind of give you a little platform to start thinking about Drive maybe differently than what you're expecting, or maybe differently from your past history. So again, it's meant to be informal. I'm going to take a few minutes and kind of go through based on what I'm hearing from customers. So first thing I'd like to talk about a little bit is what's different about OpenBOM Drive than traditional data managers. And to do that, I want to revisit how traditional data managers work. I've got one slide. This is it. So here on the left is the classic data manager. What's important to note here is there's usually a server of some type at the center, and then there's workstations. These are your colleagues. These are people that are that are working on files. I think it's important to mention right now is that OpenBOM Drive is conceived as a design manager, less of a file manager. But traditional data managers are file managers. So let's start with that conversation. So file management takes place here. There's files in a server somewhere, and then you or a colleague as a worker go and you get those files and you bring them to your workstation. And you do that by copying or checking out or doing other things, to get those files onto your workstation. And then you work on them for some period of time and you put them back. We sometimes use the word synchronize. In classic data managers, that's a good word. You sync them back to the server. So there's very much this human interaction that goes on right here where you are responsible for those files. They're on your machine, they're not on your machine, they're updated, maybe they're not updated. You have copies that your colleagues want. You have to synchronize, or you have to copy them back to the server for your colleagues to see them. There's a lot of danger around those operations. If you're coming from GrabCAD, you're familiar with overriding your colleagues' work when you put them back. If you're in other systems, you're familiar with cases where you can't get files because they're on vacation. There's all kinds of other things, or maybe just someone lost their laptop or something, and you lost a lot of work. That's how traditional systems work, where there's a central file system and a human responsible for copying and putting back changes. All right, so let's think about that. Let's set that aside for a moment. Again, if you're coming from file systems or GrabCAD or SolidWorks data managers, that's how they work. That's how your customer work. Let's talk about Drive for a moment. And let's take the example of the same file in Drive. Here I've got my little green folder here. What's interesting about Drive, or what needs to be thought of, is that the transactions between the Drive server, this is a modern cloud service, and the workstations are handled by the Drive application. So this interface here, this activity of bringing files, getting files and copying them back and all of that transaction doesn't exist in OpenBOM Drive. If I'm working on a set of files in Drive, I open them. Yes, of course, there's some activity in the background that the Drive service brings those files to you, and you work on them, and they are on they're on your workstation. But the thing that's important to note is that there are no activities, there's no changes that are made on your workstation that are not known to the centralized Drive. So you don't ever find yourself in two places. You don't ever find yourself with data that's not in Drive. In other words, you forgot to sync it, or your workstation crashed or something. Also, there's absolutely no chance that you and a colleague will ever be working on or making changes to a file at the same time. It just can't happen. So we think about OpenBOM Drive. I kind of use this motion here. OpenBOM Drive understands and interacts with all the workstations, all the users that are part of the Drive. So what does that kind of mean functionally? Well, what it means functionally is that operations like controlling access, where over on the data manager, are actions. I do a check-in or a check-out. Actually, a file is actually moved. In OpenBOM Drive, check-out or check-in, those are state changes. so that there's no data actually being transported, during those operations. When you open a file to work on it, Drive manages its access. Of course, there's a local cache and there's a file. There's a file drive that looks like um, a drive, a set of files, but in fact, it's being run by OpenBOM Drive, the OpenBOM Drive service, and presenting to SolidWorks or other CAD systems like a file system. So a few of the things that are really important to understand. Number one, the conflicts that go on between copying data back and forth don't exist. So all those transactions are known for everyone. The second thing is when you make a save out here, if you're out here working and you make a save, those saves are known to the drive automatically. You don't have to copy them back to the drive. They just are, and they're known. There's a couple of configurations that can be made with Drive, and we can help you with that about on at what time are your colleagues notified about new changes. Drive can be configured so that new changes are sent to all your colleagues when you save. There's also, we can configure it in a way that says, look, I don't publish my changes to my colleagues until I check it in. So that's kind of the difference between kind of hyper collaborative and collaborative modes. Those are all things that are configurable, and the team at OpenBOM, my team at OpenBOM, can work with you to kind of set those things up. So I'm going to kind of recap here. If you're coming from GrabCAD, especially, but if you're coming from other file manager systems, you'll have to kind of set aside your idea that you need to synchronize or that you need to copy files local and put them back. That notion just doesn't exist. In Drive, that activity is managed by the Drive application. You open a file, and of course, it comes to you locally. Your CAD system works on it. You save it. Those changes are put back. So there's quite a lot of information available online that describes all this, but I hear from a lot of customers that are some confusion about this. So I wanted to take a few moments. I realize uh, it's about 7 minutes long, but I want to take a few moments to kind of lay that out in terms of kind of traditional system and OpenBOM Drive. So listen, thanks for taking the time to listen. I'm always interested in hearing from you at support@openbom.com.